Okay, so today, after an Arsenal win, we're going to make double chocolate dream cookies from Nestle Toll House cookbook. And pretty simple, about the same as the chocolate chip. Only difference is we're going to use a bit of cocoa powder today. So we're going to start with mixing all of the dry ingredients together. First is 2 1/4 cups of flour. We're going to follow that up with a 1/2 cup of baking cocoa, a teaspoon of baking soda, and a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I'm going to mix all those together with the, just with a whisk. I just want to get them kind of mixed up. I go for a few seconds, nothing particularly great. It's time now for the wet ingredients. We're going to start with a cup of packed brown sugar, 3/4 cup of regular sugar, a teaspoon of vanilla, and then a cup of butter. Okay, now that that's done, I'm just going to stick it on the blender and let it run for a minute or two to mix up the ingredients, but make sure you don't mix them up too much. You don't want them to be too creamy. You want them to be a bit firm, but if you make it too thin, then the cookies won't turn out very well. What we're going to do, we've switched that off now, and the recipe actually calls for 2 eggs, but we're trying to make these vegan. So the best way that I found to replace the eggs is to use a 1/4 cup of applesauce for every egg. So I'm going to just pour it in a little bit at a time and then mix it up. So you want to keep letting it beat until it's light and fluffy. And you turn it off, and notice that I magically added on this top here. So this is to help us add the dry ingredients in easier. So we're going to do a little bit at a time, and that's the beauty of this mixer. You can just add it in here without making a gigantic mess. So I'm going to do maybe 1/3 of it at a time. I don't like putting in too much at once because I feel like it doesn't mix all that great. I'm going to let it mix in a bit, do that 2 more times, and then we're going to add in the chocolate chips. All the dry ingredients are now mixed with the wet ingredients, and it's time to add in the chocolate chips. Again, this is where this lid on top of the Kenmore mixer is really useful, because I can just do a little bit at a time. I've got it on a very, very low speed. Maybe I should go even a bit lower. You can if you want. If you want to just mix them with the spatula, that's fine too. I'm just being a bit lazy, and I prefer to use the mixer and let it do more for me. So now I have everything mixed together, and we're ready to put them on the cookie sheet. I like to line it with a parchment paper. I also use a convection oven instead of a big oven because I like to just cook a few cookies at a time to make sure I can control them a bit better. So I've got a nice big cookie scoop. It kind of looks like an ice cream scoop. And I'm going to put, I usually put about 6 on here because I don't want them to touch each other. And I also want them to be quite large. Got my 6 cookies on the tray. They should be pretty large, be really good for ice cream sandwiches. And the oven has been preheated to 375 degrees, cooking for 8 to 10 minutes. I usually start with 8 minutes because you can always add time. It's very hard to take time away. Okay, 8 minutes later, we're going to go ahead and take them out and see how they look. Okay, looking pretty perfect. So we're going to take 2 minutes now. I'm going to put them onto this small wire rack here so I can get a bit of air underneath of them. Let them sit for 2 minutes and move them on to the other rack to cool completely. So I've cooked 2 batches so far. I really should wait until they're all done, but I can't. I have to try one. I'm going to try this one in the middle. It looks really delicious. And I break it apart. Oh yes, look at that chewy goodness. Very good.